Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to help me to go on this journey with me as I figure out what #causeascene TV is going to be. And it's coming together. I don't know if it's going to be a daily show, a weekly show, or what, but there's some things I have to say. And I'm just taking a page out of the book of Rush Limbaugh and Alex Jones. And I'm just saying what's on my mind. Again, after the president of the United States called a former black employee a dog, he said so many things that a lot of you just get upset about. I get upset, but in a different way, because every time he moves, he obliterates the line of human decency, of any of those things. It just makes me feel, hey, I recognize that as a black woman, I have nowhere near the level of privilege he has. But hell, I can say what I want to. I can say pretty damn much everything I want to. And that's what I'm going to do. So with that, I want to say also that this will not be a political show in the way of Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, liberals. It's not that. I am only speaking for myself and on behalf of marginalized people. That's people of color, brown, black people, people with disabilities, people, LGBTQ community. This is who I'm speaking for. Anybody who's disenfranchised by this system of whiteness and privilege, this is who I'm speaking to. And this is the message I want to get across, because I'm not speaking to them. They already understand it. This podcast though, or this, whatever this is for those white individuals who for the first time are experiencing what we've always experienced, is that privilege is a parasite, and for the first time it's eaten on its host, which is whiteness and privilege. And so where white people are uncomfortable with me talking, the system of privilege that they've come to recognize and rely on for their self-identity is making them even more uncomfortable in a lot of situations, and they're having to, and white people are having to grapple with this. So this message is for you. These messages are for you. So today, I want to specifically talk about freedom of speech. I want to define it. For those who don't know, I'm an educator, so I won't be on here ranting and raving and saying things that I can't bring research to, or there's some factual base to it, and truth to it. So I want to talk about free speech, because this speaks directly to why I'm doing this show, and because there needs to be a counter voice. There needs to be a counter message. We need to amplify messages that are not inflammatory in the way, and I want to be cautious about this, because when we're talking about free speech, I'm not saying inflammatory because it makes people uncomfortable. There are a lot of things that need to make people uncomfortable, including myself. What I'm talking about are people who are inciting violence, who are sharing information that is incorrect in the hopes of inciting just conflict, just to have conflict. And there's another thing, when people talk about debates, and that's probably what I'll talk about tomorrow. These aren't debates. Debates have rules, and these aren't debates. These are just people screaming across the aisles, just throwing garbage across the field, and it makes absolutely no sense. So I am going to share my screen, because I'm an educator, so I've done the teacher thing here. And what I am, we will be sharing is, I'm going to define some terms, and then I'm going to just break down in some things that I have been researching. So freedom of speech, and this is just a dictionary version of it. There is no right or wrong. There is no reason to have any emotion tied to this. It's just a definition: the right to express your opinions publicly. That is what free speech is. And so I want to speak specifically, because I'm going to go broad, because I want to talk about this fake news and fraudulent information, and this is specifically to those who are saying that individuals like Alex Jones and whatever have you, but that's the person currently in the spotlight, has that when companies side against him or side with him, it's about his freedom of speech. So this is an article that actually accounts the fact that this guy has this is freedom of speech scholars at Alex Jones. You're not protected, and this is why I do this, because we can't. So this is the part I want to talk about. Free speech does not serve public interest the way that false speech does not serve the public interest the way that truth speech does. And indeed, there is no constitutional value in false statements of fact. This is where I want to start, because this is the argument that every kind of speech deserves equal, that's that diversity of thought thing. Everything deserves equal representation. And as we know, as a person of a part of a marginalized community, our voices have never been thought of as equal. But now that white individuals are being challenged, now they want to bring out free speech. Black people, brown people, people with disabilities, people in the LGBTQ community have never had the ability to speak freely about our experiences and to mobilize. So this is where we're starting. And then this is the U.S. courts. This is a federal government website. And it talks about, it gives them examples of what free speech includes and what it does not. So I'm gonna make this bigger a little bit so we can see. So what it includes, you have a right to not to speak. So this is what I don't understand with the take a knee issues. These are not about against the veterans, or this is a constitutional right not to speak and not to salute the flag. That is specifically not to salute the flag. And this is the precedence of that from 1943. I don't understand what these athletes have. This is a right, this is their free right, their free speech. So students have a right to wear armbands to protest. You can use certain offensive languages and phrases to convey political messages. You can contribute money to political campaigns. You can advertise your products with restrictions. And you can engage in symbolic speech, like burning the flag. What you cannot do is incite actions that would harm others. So like shouting fire in a theater. And also, and I would speak specifically to this with Alex Jones, your conspiracy theories, I'm not even going to say that, your speech or theories or facts about Sandy Hook not happening is it's inciting others to act that are harming the families of these young children who were killed in this thing. That is not your right. That is not a part of free speech. So for that alone means to me that you are not, your podcast, your tweets are not protected. To make or distribute obscene materials, to burn a draft card as an anti-war protest, to permit students to print articles in a school newspaper over their objections of school administrators, of students to make obscene speech at the school-sponsored event, for students to advocate drugs on the schools. And so I'm going to speak to this one right here, because this is right here is where I equate the Google manifesto. I can never remember the guy's name. Why he does not have a case for free speech, and also why his EOC, equal opportunity, okay, whatever it is, you guys know what it is, that denied his claim. I don't even think it was that. It was a California, some kind of employment panel or whatever, said that he did not have a claim, because what he did was, although he has the right to speak, What he did not have the right to do was what they consider obscene or inflammatory or discriminatory speech at state-sponsored event is at or on work work equipment, where that's where he made his I don't even call it a mistake, that's where he screwed that up. If he would have done it on a Medium post, if he would have done it in a Twitter thread, if he would have done it on his Instagram or on LinkedIn or Facebook, that would be a different and then he would have been fired for that. That would have been a different thing. But because you did it on Google's equipment, that does not fall under free speech. So then this is a Wikipedia. We know Wikipedia well, because I just wanted some definitions. So freedom of speech is a principle that supports the freedom of an individual community to articulate their opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation, censorship, and sanction. The terms freedom of expression is sometimes used synonymously, but includes any act of seeking, receiving, or imparting information or ideas regardless of the medium used. So freedom of expression is recognized as a human right under Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and recognized in the International Human Rights Law, in the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. Article 19 of the UDHR states that everyone should have the right to hold opinions without interference, and everyone shall have the right to a freedom of expression. This right shall include freedom to speak, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers or regardless of frontiers, either orally or written or in print, in the form of art or through any other media of choice. The version of the Articles 19 in the ICCPR later amends this by stating that the exercise of these rights carries special duties and responsibilities. This is the hot point right here. Your freedom of speech is, first of all, with the government. And secondly, there are special duties and responsibilities. There is responsibility to your free speech, and their consequences, and may therefore be subject to certain restrictions when necessary, for respect of rights and reputations of others, or for the protection of national security, or of the public order, public, or of the public health or morals. So that right there. So then I want to know, how are people defining fake news? Because this article, which I'm going to go back to, where this thing comes from, talks about, it's a Washington Post article, how to squash fake news without trampling on free speech. So this is a question that we need to answer. This is not a political issue. This is not a morals issue. This is an issue that we need to answer for all of us. Again, because marginalized people have never had the same level of protection from free speech as as white individuals have. It just never has happened in the United States. So the PEN America is where that article that I'm about to read to you is from, defines it as fake news as demonstratively false information that is being presented as factual news report with intention to deceive the public. And then when we talk about the President of the United States, anything that he doesn't, and this is in fact true, when he doesn't like something, he considers it fake news. It really doesn't have to have any intention about whether it was intended to deceive the public. If he doesn't like it, it becomes fake news. So I wanted to talk about defining fraudulent news, because they say the suggestion that in order to understand a problem is necessary to define it is particularly the case with fake news, a term that has been appropriated by various actors for the purpose of discrediting negative press coverage. For this report, PEN America is focusing on what we are labeling as fraudulent news. And I like that better, because now fake is subjective. Fraudulent is there's some precedents in the laws about what is fraudulent. So I like that term, fraudulent news. Demonstrably false information that is being presented as factual news reports, as a factual news report with the intention to deceive the public. So then they break down what are, and so they also talk about, for the purpose of this report, fraudulent news does not refer to good faith mistakes, news reports that may be considered to reflect a particular bias or worldview, or editorial decisions to focus more on a particular issue than another. So they already encompass people's particular bias. So this, again, is not about the left or the right or Republican or Democrat or independent. It's not about that. It's about how do we define this for all of everybody's free speech. So they break it down into 3 categories, but they also include conspiracy theory. So one of the categories is fraudulent news for profit. So we see this with the Inquirer and all these other we've had these forever. These newspapers that will put out a story, and one of the risk management things that they think about is how much if we put out this story, or we promote this message and we know it's fraudulent, we know we're going to get sued, so we're going to put some money aside for that because we know that. But that the news story is, or the headline or the attention is more important than getting it right. So it's for profit. So they have budgets for this. So another one is fraudulent news for political motives, and we're seeing that everywhere. And then there's government-sponsored misinformation, and that's where we're talking about the Russians interfering with ads on Facebook and Twitter. We can go back to the Nazi propaganda machines with Herman Goebbels. We can go back to when Soviet Union, when communism or not even just communism, but I'm speaking particularly to you change the whole narrative. It becomes you change textbooks history. I mean, the textbooks change, the narrative change, the whole history change to reflect the new regime or the new political leaders. That's government-sponsored misinformation. And then you have this conspiracy theory section where fraudulent news stories that appear to be genuinely believed by those who created the stories in the first place. So just like the moon landing is faked and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to have a oh, I'm sorry. So the last one brings it all together for me. So in this Penn article, they make some recommendations. So they say educators should adopt news literacy education as a core part of school curriculums. Social media networks such as Twitter and Facebook should identify purveyors of fraudulent news and take steps to ensure that they are not able to sustain themselves and profit from access to advertising services on their platforms, which is happening right now with the, I'm going to look this up right now, with the campaign on Twitter. Shannon Coulter's grab your purse. Let me get this correct. So it's the Block 50 Party, and hashtag Block 50 Party, and her grab your wallet. I apologize. It's grab your wallet. And this campaign has over, look how many people have retweeted it. So last I checked, let me just scroll down, and she has an update because she was at over 50,000 individuals who had signed up to block Twitter advertisers. Just block them, the top 500 most lucrative Twitter advertisers. And this is why I talk about, while you're protecting his free speech, this is why lack of inclusion is a risk management issue. So while you're protecting this individual's free speech, you have employees who are, you're gonna lose employees, you're gonna lose the very backbone of people who make Twitter run. And is it worth it? These are the questions that individual business leaders have to ask. Is it worth it? And I mean, they're taught, I mean, they're not, and I read this. I've, he says this, I've been a daily user of Twitter for the last 11 years, long before I started working at Twitter. I won't be a monthly active user during the rest of the third quarter because he's deleting the app and he works there. And these are the issues. So that is the second episode of hashtag causeascene TV. And I'm still, like, again, still figuring this out. But I know what I need to do is amplify the voice of marginalized individuals. In all of this that's going on, we're getting left out. And this can't happen anymore. So thank you and have a great day.